I thought this place was full of talented people, but it turns out there's a middle school grad among us. These were the words of our new manager during his first introduction. From that moment, I decided that I didn't like the manager. As someone who values academic credentials, having a subordinate who's only finished middle school must have been displeasing to him. And with the arrival of the manager, my fate took a drastic turn. Well, I have my own thoughts on this. My name is Tyler. I'm a 32-year-old company employee. I work in product development and research, and recently, I obtained a patent for some technology one developed. Being young and having a patent, I even got interviewed by a specialty magazine. What I developed was an antibacterial and antiviral fabric. Right when I developed this, an infectious disease started spreading, and masks disappeared from the market. So, we quickly decided to use this technology to make masks. I wanted to evolve this fabric into something for medical use. But, due to the company's direction, we ended up making masks with this technology. The technology was patented and became a topic of conversation. Since masks were scarce, they sold well, even at a higher price. The factories we partnered with got busy, and we sold units in the billions over a few years. However, it's difficult to handle, and I often get inquiries as the developer. That's when there was a personnel change. Our department's manager was replaced. The new manager who came in was, in a word, an elitist about academic backgrounds. Up until then, no one had ever brought up educational backgrounds, but when it comes to academic credentials, I feel uneasy. Moreover, the manager saw right through me. When the manager said during his first greeting, "There's a middle school grad among us," something changed in our department. The development department, being a prestigious section that gathers highly educated employees, naturally led everyone to assume that all members had college degrees. However, the manager's words started a hunt for who the middle school grad was. It didn't take long for them to find out it was me. "So the middle school grad that the new manager was talking about was you?" I was taken aback when a colleague, who until then had talked to me normally, said this. I had been avoiding the topic of educational background, so hardly anyone knew about mine. But the manager is big on academic credentials, and had checked everyone's educational background by looking at resumes when he took office. The truth is, I dropped out of high school. As a child, I was called a prodigy, always topping my class in middle school. My father was a university professor, and I took it for granted. I attempted a competitive high school on my father's advice. However, I caught a cold the day before the exam and failed to perform well, resulting in a failed entrance exam. I went to a local high school instead, where I was laughed at by those around me. Gradually, going to school became more difficult for me. By my senior year of high school, I had stopped attending and completely shut myself in. During the summer of my senior year, my father, furious that I wouldn't leave my room, told me if I didn't want to go, I should just quit high school. I blamed my father for insisting I apply to a competitive school, believing that if he hadn't, I would have applied to a different school from the start. Stubbornly, I snapped back that I would quit high school. Living at home became uncomfortable, and I left, almost like running away. However, needing money to live, I found a factory where I could work and live in, and somehow got hired. This was a textile factory, which also marks the beginning of my current career path. As I worked, various questions and points for improvement came to mind, and I began to research on my own. I submitted my research results to my boss, not expecting much. At first, I was ridiculed, but my boss's demeanor changed after reading the documents. This became the first step towards patenting the technology. After that, I joined my current department at the age of 20, and since then, I've been dedicated to product development and research. Having produced results from my development work for 12 years, I never thought I would be looked down upon for my educational background. Once it became known, however, other employees and seniors started to look down on me, just like the manager. Originally, being the youngest, I didn't really fit in with the others and felt out of place in the department. Working wasn't an issue, but because of this manager, it finally started to affect my job. Some people even ask me out of curiosity, "Why did you drop out of high school, Tyler?" But I didn't want to answer, so I dodged the question. Then, gradually, I started to be talked about behind my back. I had truly developed patent-worthy technology, but it seems they thought a high school dropout couldn't possibly do such a thing. There were even accusations that I had stolen someone else's research. When a senior casually said, "Come on, there's no way a high school dropout could develop this, right?" I felt despair. I lost confidence in being able to continue here. As the rumor spread, the scrutiny from those around me intensified. Finally, I was called in by the manager. "Because of you, the atmosphere in the department is the worst. Having a high school dropout here seems to be a bad idea after all," the manager said with a smirk. "Having a high school dropout as my subordinate is also embarrassing for me," the manager said, taking advantage of my silence to say whatever he wanted. Then he told me, "I'm giving you a choice, being transferred to another department or leaving this place. Does that mean I'm being fired?" I asked the manager, who laughed and said, "I didn't say fired. How about transferring to another department? Though, your salary will decrease. Ah, the sales department has commissions, and they don't need academic degrees there. Or maybe, transfer to the factory where academic degrees are even less of a requirement." I snapped at those words, impulsively retorting, "Are you looking down on other departments? Without the sales team, the products we develop wouldn't sell. And without the people working in the factory, the products wouldn't be made, would they? What are you talking about?" The manager laughed heartily at me. "Covering for each other because of your low academic backgrounds? Ridiculous. Listen, academic degrees are necessary. People with high academic degrees like me are the real winners." Then the manager said, "I'll give you 3 days to decide," and left. I talked to Sam in the sales department about this. Sam is the same age as me and the ace of the sales department. We hit it off at the first social gathering and have been the only ones in the company to keep in touch privately. The sales department is full of young people. Sam has real ability and looks after his subordinates. We have opposite personalities, but somehow we get along well. Sam is studious and has asked me a lot about my patented technology. He can explain things to clients that other salespeople can't, so it seems he's pushing this product more than anyone. Additionally, a certain medical manufacturer that Sam is in charge of has expressed interest in further evolving the technology. And I was interested to hear more. However, I decided to leave the company. Sam seemed disappointed, but after hearing my situation, he didn't try to stop me. 3 days later, I handed over the documents to the manager, saying, "Thank you for everything." This is the handover documentation. It included the development history and future prospects. Regardless of the manager and those in the same department who turned their backs. I was grateful to the company for hiring me, a high school dropout, and assigning me to this department. I created the handover document hoping the company would continue to develop. But when the manager took it, without even checking inside, he said, "I don't need this," and, unbelievably, tore it up and threw it away. Then, turning to a nearby employee, he said, "Hey, shred this," and the employee, holding the torn documents, immediately went to the shredder. I felt so frustrated I was on the verge of tears. The manager, grinning, said, "High school dropouts should disappear along with the trash." When I clenched my lips, it seemed to amuse him even more, and he laughed harder. "If I need help, I'll ask an employee with a high academic degree. There's nothing I need to take over from you." Hearing that, I felt a moment of clarity in the manager's consistent attitude. It was almost refreshing. I simply said, "Is that so?" and went to complete my resignation. A comment from a coworker in the same department. "I guess it really is impossible here for a high school dropout, huh?" struck me as I walked away. The day after I resigned, I found myself in Sam's car, heading to a hot spring resort. Upon learning of my official resignation, Sam took some leave to take me on a trip. While soaking in the hot spring, Sam said, "Man, our company is stupid. To drive away someone with talent like you, over something as trivial as academic background." I muttered, "It's not really about talent," but Sam shook his head. "With the technology you developed, a revenue of $300 million isn't a dream. In fact, since getting the patent, our sales have skyrocketed, and the company's performance has recovered. It was quite down for a while." I said, "But, with the infectious disease calming down, we can't expect more sales without a new product or new technology." Sam made a troubled face and said, "Yeah, that's true. After getting out of the hot spring and checking my smartphone, I noticed several missed calls. Looking at the screen, I was shocked. "What's this?" Sam peered over, his eyes widening in surprise. There were 100 missed calls from the manager. Out of caution, I decided to check the voicemail. It said, "Come to the office right now, there's a journalist here who wants to interview you." I remembered there had been a request for an interview about the patent. But I thought it had been dismissed because the manager hadn't taken it seriously. The journalist had interviewed me before, so they should have had my contact information. I considered explaining the situation to the journalist. Then, I noticed there were more voicemails. Inquiries about the patent technology. The others can't handle it. Contact us immediately, followed by a rather condescending message. While I was processing this, another call came in. As I was debating whether to turn it off, Sam said, "Just turn off your phone," so I thought that made sense and turned it off. After a while, Sam's work smartphone started ringing. It seemed to be a call from one of his subordinates, asking if he knew how to contact me. When Sam asked why, the subordinate explained that the manager had become panicked, searching for anyone who could contact me, and had been barging into various departments. The manager had ordered to contact even those who were off, so, reluctantly, the subordinate had called Sam. Sam explained, "I'll respond if the manager calls me directly." I didn't want to drag Sam into this and offered to call the manager myself, but Sam refused. Soon after, Sam got a call from the manager. "Get in touch with that high school dropout immediately," he ordered Sam, who he barely knew. He's always been that kind of person, but he must be in quite a panic now. When Sam put the call on speaker to hear what was happening, the manager said, "There seems to be a trouble at the factory, and they're saying only he can handle it. Also, a client has questions about the technology, and since he was in charge, nobody else can give a detailed explanation." It seems that not only was there a journalist wanting an interview, but also a factory issue happening at the same time. "But Tyler has already resigned, hasn't he?" "It seems like you forced him into resigning," Sam said. The manager retorted, "It doesn't matter if he's resigned, it's his fault for not properly handing things over. Besides, I offered him a transfer to another department. He chose to resign." I stopped Sam from replying and spoke up. "You're the one who tore up the handover document." Recognizing my voice, the manager yelled, "Where are you and what are you doing? I've left so many voicemails telling you to come quickly." I just sighed. "I have no reason to follow orders from you anymore, since you're no longer my boss. Everything you're troubled with was written in the handover documents, the very ones you shredded so meticulously." After saying that, the manager was at a loss for words. "Besides, your department is full of highly educated employees, right? There's no need to ask someone like me, a high school dropout. You were the one who said it, manager, that there's no need for a handover because you can ask the highly educated employees." Sam, standing beside me, crossed his arms and nodded in agreement. Since the manager didn't say anything, I continued. "About the interview mentioned in the voicemail, I've already contacted the journalist. They want to interview you next." Me, the manager sounded confused. I smiled and replied. After I explained the circumstances of my leaving, the journalist mentioned it might constitute power harassment and that there might be a case of wrongful termination. "So they're interested in interviewing you." After listening to the manager's voicemails, I directly called the journalist. The journalist felt sorry that I had left and, upon hearing the circumstances, said they wanted to help me somehow by proposing an interview with the manager. The journalist is kind but somewhat aggressive, so I believe they will indeed contact the manager. This could be damaging for the manager if it becomes public knowledge. Power harassment and wrongful termination. If the company finds out, my position will be jeopardized. The manager started panicking. However, I simply responded, "That's tough." Then Sam said, "Well, it's uncertain what will happen to the company itself. So you might not need to worry about your position anymore." The manager replied, but Sam said, "Then, we'll be excusing ourselves," and hung up. "What does that mean?" When I expressed my surprise, Sam turned to me and said, "You haven't decided on where to move next, have you?" I had been feeling too down to start looking for another job. After I answered, Sam nodded. "Remember the medical manufacturer I mentioned before, the one interested in the technology you developed? What about them? I was taken aback by the unexpected offer. Sam had spoken to the medical manufacturer about me, and they were eager to have me join them. By the way, I'm planning to move there too. And I'm bringing some of my team members with me. Well, our company puts a heavy burden on the sales department, and many are thinking of leaving. With Tyler gone and no one being able to handle inquiries, a drop in sales and performance is inevitable. It'll be interesting to see what happens to the company, Sam said with a laugh. Then, incredibly, I got a call from my dad. He had seen the article about me getting the patent and called me his pride and joy. We hadn't spoken properly in over 10 years, but he said he told me to quit high school thinking it would spur me to action. He wanted to apologize for leaving home but never found the right time until now. I also apologized to my dad. I had misunderstood him and unfairly blamed him for my exam failure, making me a shameful son. Reconciling with my dad and having hope for my new job, I felt refreshed. A few days later, the journalist who interviewed the manager contacted me. Thanks to that, the manager's power harassment and wrongful termination became rumors within the company. And it seems the manager was called in by the president. It seems he's being transferred to another department and demoted. Since he was part of those who looked down on me. Whether work became difficult or jobs were lost. The department's people who took over the inquiries in my stead seemed to be messing up. Angering clients with incorrect information, and losing potential new deals. Sam watched all this unfold before he resigned. After that, the performance of the department visibly worsened. I received a settlement for the power harassment and wrongful termination. I'm satisfied with that. Now, I'm developing technology useful for medical institutions at my new job. Here, there's no one who looks down on others for their educational background, and there are trustworthy people of my own age. I'm grateful to Sam and want to do my best here.